Hey, ladies and fellow gentlemen, welcome to tonight's episode of CheapHeatTV. I am Scott E. Morgan. The E is not important tonight, but the one thing you do need to know is I am not alone, for I have my cohorts tonight. Bringing up first, the Prince of Pep, Upbeat Xanders.
Whoa, hang on.
There it is.
Before you even get to the other guy that might show up, we'll see. Good job, dude. You legal pad, I got you. All right, go.
Gusto. All right. And unfortunately, the guy who has to put up with the rest of us, and I feel really bad for him sometimes, but he puts the man in manager, the king of all wrestling media, Gene Jackson.
Gene.
Holy shit.
Holy shit.
We are 62 episodes into this, and we've just now recently discovered that Scott Morgan is the king of making the introduction of these shows. You know how great the previous shows could have started off had we known this before?
It's amazing. It's an incline, man. We're going up.
We're taking steps upward. That's upbeat. I like
See,
that.
now we're starting up here. And we can't let it fall. Like you raised the bar out of the gate. Usually when you just start with Xander's like a deer in the headlight. Hey everybody! This is Upbeat Xander's. This is the king of some stuff. Gene Jenkins or whatever name he's using.
Hang on, what did we do? Where are we going, Gene? We gotta go up. We gotta go up though. We're not doing that tonight. We're going up.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah.
That was I know.
Look here. Look what else is going on. Look at this guy.
Hey!
Man himself.
All right, so hang on. We normally have one other person. Are you going to introduce the other person?
Well, they kind of have to be here. So.
Wait. He's not here. Wait, have you heard anything?
I had another one. I had a good one.
You have? Hang on, introduce him to see if, do we have any music for him? If we had music for him, we'd play it. Like an
wish
intro.
we had no chance in hell we could play right
now. Scott, you want to do it anyway?
I'm gonna go ahead and do the introduction, and when he gets here, we'll bring him in. But, ladies and gentlemen, introducing my best friend, our cup of half and half, my beautiful bald bestie, Shane Mako. Smokey doesn't appreciate the tardiness.
Smokey is not a fan of tardiness or no shows.
Well, he's back. Smokey's back too. We don't have any we're not bringing Smokey on the screen. He will lose his mind. But he's back too. He's back behind the helm. Gene, you're back. I'm excited. This is gonna be a good modest Mako. This will be a good episode.
Yeah,
there's Smokey. I'm
he
sorry.
Wants us to quit, he wants us to quit talking about the fact Mako is no-showed, apparently.
Smokey, I tried.
Yeah. Hey, it wasn't at you, man. I think Smokey might have actually cracked a smile. That's the first time I've seen you smile in an intro, man. Good job. I can't get over that one. No shot. Hey, easy, Smokey. I know you're back, dude. But no, Smokey, I'm sorry. We're gonna keep it on track. We're doing tonight. Gene, we're going to do an AEW, at least first half of the show, see where it leads to. Is that right?
That's my understanding. That's what we promised anyway. If you want to start the first half, see where we get to. And if you got other things that are pressing you want to talk about in the second half, by all means, we'll let you do that.
Well, we've got the Scholar Scott standing on standby that I'm working on some stuff with. If we have to use it, we can. But it's a work in progress. But let's just start with the AEW stuff. You're the lead man on this one.
Mr. Crimes is very concerned about the whereabouts of one Shane Mako. So if we can get on that, get some answers here.
Smokey's just losing his mind. Justin
Klein is listening. Thank you.
Speaking of lost minds, there's Justin Klein.
You already told us you're welcome, so I had to go ahead and say thank you. But yes, here it is. We're talking about AEW All Out. This time last week that was happening. It started at 6 p.m. was the pre-show, if you will. And it went on, it felt like till Monday morning. It was a very long show. Right out of the gate, if AEW, if there's anything they need to do for improvements, they need to shorten these pay-per-views. For the love of God. Hey, and Wicked's in the house too. What's up?
Hey, Wicked Nemesis. What's up, man?
I'm here to make sure you don't Slight MJF. Okay, well.
He started. Well, thanks for joining the show.
Charles probably will because he has a personal vendetta against him.
He wasn't on Fallout, was he? So we might even get.
No, he wasn't on that. But we're not going to talk about more than. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the pre-show.
So how long was this? Like, I know you joked about it, but like it was hours, like over 4 hours.
I mean, it started at 7. It ended around 11:30ish.
I can't do math. It's like,
well, I mean, the pre-show started at 6, and then the pay-per-view ended at around 11:30 or so.
So 5 hours of that nonsense. I mean, of that quality wrestling. That's crazy. That's, I mean, that's a wild amount of stuff. Like, was it more?
So in that pre-show, you had Sammy Guevara and Trey Conti, or Mello as they call her now, of the Jericho Appreciation Society, defeated Ortiz and Ruby Soho in a mixed tag team match for the AAA World Mixed Tag Team Championship. Ruby Soho nearly got her neck broken on one spot there. It's pretty vicious looking. That opened the show, which prior to the match starting saw Ortiz and Ruby Soho run over Sammy Guevara with a go-kart of some sort, whatever you call those things. Side by sides is what they call it in my business, but you know.
Oh, I just watched the bump. I
just saw a comment that reminded me, we forgot to open the show with something, and I don't know that I even uploaded it to you.
This one? Is it this
one?
Oh, sorry. It would
be the next one.
People. Oh, okay. Well.
So then in the second match, Hook, who's still undefeated, defeated Angelo Parker of the Jericho Appreciation Society, along with Matt Menard. Of course, they are the formerly 2.0, or maybe they still are 2.0. I don't know. For the FTW Championship, because now we're using Taz's imaginary title from ECW because we don't have near enough belts in AEW. 3 minutes, 55 seconds, which saw. So as I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but as Hook was coming down to the ring, they pointed out that the rapper who made his theme song was in the front row. Hook went over and shook hands with somebody who looked like a diesel mechanic. Turns out he's the rapper who made the song. Now, that's Action Bronson, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would have assumed that he worked on Hook's vehicle.
He's a rapper?
He is a rapper.
Boy, that's
rough. Let's pull him up again and let's let that sink in.
Yeah, that's
the guy on the right is apparently a well-known, well-to-do rapper.
Oh man, see, this is where, and hang on, Smokey, I'm going to override this, and it's going to make me so upset that he's not here for this, because this would be a perfect time for this. Yeah, that would be a good time for a good old-fashioned Mako.
Well, I mean, if you're wanting this thing to roll along, then no, you would not want Mako to get on a 20-minute sidebar.
Where's Bro's mixtape at? Where's Bro's mixtape at?
Oh, I don't want to hear any mixtapes. But anyways, I'm sorry. So that's there. But either way, still, that's what you want to put in your ring to, like, you know, he's not looking much of a gimmick. He doesn't look like he's like ripping any of his stuff. I don't know, man. That's a rough look for anybody if that's what you're going to.
So the next match on the pre-show was a singles match for the AEW All Atlantic Championship, as the Bastard Pac defeated Kip Sabian, who Kip Sabian, if you don't know, has spent the last 8 or 9 months sitting out in the crowd with a box on his head, literally a cardboard box on his head. To come back and have this match where the couple of times that he was in control, he looked over and talked to the box as if he was Al Snow talking to the mannequin head back in the day. And then he lost to Pac. And so that's what the big buildup of the box on his head thing was to lose on the pre-show of All Out to Pac in 12 minutes and 25 seconds, which was the second longest match on this pre-show. And then the main event of the pre-show, if you will, Eddie Kingston defeated Aishi, Japanese fellow, in 13 minutes and 25 seconds in a match that saw a lot of chops. Like an obscene amount of chops.
Just from your view, because I mean that was your big thing. You were watching All Out, like that was your big I mean, is that stuff like, I understand that's probably going to draw a certain class to that kind of grouping, but do you feel like that drew like a match that would be like, if that was your WrestleMania, because that's what they're going to consider it. I mean, if like we're just being realistic and what we're calling a spade, it's WrestleMania for AEW. Is that like what you would consider a, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins pay-per-view match from back whenever they were running, the pre-show stuff?
Well, no. I mean, I don't know. Was Randy Orton and Seth Rollins ever the pre-show?
Were they not like pre-show?
They were either pre-show or the opener match.
They were the opener, but they weren't the pre-show.
Were they? Okay, I couldn't remember. But like that was. I mean, I know they had the Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
Yeah, I mean, you always had the Andre Battle Royal or the Usos against the New Day or whatever.
Did they have those? Did they have those kind of gimmicky like battle royals at all in the All Out? I mean, I know we're probably going to eventually get to it, but
usually, I mean, they had this casino ladder match we're about to talk about in a moment. Usually, that's a casino battle royal instead, but for whatever reason, it was a ladder match this time around. So just to recap, okay, so if you are saying that your pre-show is representative of the show and you're trying to draw people in, you've got a mixed tag match, you've got the hook match, you've got Pac and Kip Sabian, which is a high-flying match for the most part. And then you got Eddie Kingston and Aishi, I think is how you say that. And they beat the piss out of each other. And I guess you had a pretty decent representation of different styles of wrestling. It's up to you whether you think it's worth
did they do
how did you want to buy the pay-per-view or not. But
how did they do the pre-show? Was it on their, because I know they've done sometimes where it's been on their actual like YouTube or something?
It's always on their YouTube for free.
Okay.
Sometimes they show it on Fight for free. I think this time they did, or not Fight, but Bleacher Report. But it's always on their YouTube channel for free. So let's look at a couple comments before we move to the main show. Wicked said 13 titles now. That's probably not far.
Pretty close. True. It's a whole conversation on that one.
Justin Klein's is pretty sure that guy was wrestling at the Ryan's Buffet parking lot last weekend. I think he's probably referring to Action Bronson.
Oh.
Not a fan of Ruby Soho.
Well, you almost didn't have to be anymore because she almost.
Yeah, she was nearly paralyzed.
Decapitated. It was
Kip Sabian deserves better. Eddie Kingston does not. Well, I mean, Kip Sabian's married to Penelope Ford, so nobody's crying for him too hard. He's doing it for himself.
Eddie's,
Speaking of boxes on his head, but anyway, Randy Orton.
Sorry for that.
Never been on a pre-show.
I do apologize.
Thank you, Tammy. That is correct. Thank you.
I'm saying Smokey should have booed me on that. Yeah.
I'm sure he was mean mugging the hell out of you. So the opening match of the pay-per-view itself was the casino ladder match. Now, this wasn't your typical ladder match, as in this involved several people. And okay, now I want to hear you guys' input on this because this kind of struck me as kind of weird. So they got a poker chip hanging above the ring. If you climb up the ladder and get the poker chip, that gets you a AEW World Championship match.
Money in the Bank style. Yeah.
But the difference between this and the Money in the Bank is everybody does not start at once, much like a Royal Rumble or some such. 2 men start, and then randomly other people enter. But the match can end at any time somebody gets that chip. Yeah. So if, the first 2 people came out and one of them shot up the ladder and got the chip, well, the other people are just screwed. Now you're just sorry. Luck of the draw. You didn't get out here in time. So, and you kind of know it's not going to end until everybody gets out there. So why even make that part of the thing? Wow. So this involved, This involved Claudio Wheeler Yuta, who at the time was the Ring of Honor Pure Champion, Penta El Zero Miedo, or Pentagon Jr., if you prefer. I do. Ray Phoenix, Rush, if you pronounce it the way it's written. Andrade El Idolo with Jose, the assistant, and Dante Martin. And then there was a Joker. There's always in these casino matches a Joker who's unannounced. So
it was Orange Cassidy one year. That was their first start out was Orange Cassidy, wasn't it? I can't remember. No, maybe not. It might have been Moxley. Might have been
maybe. I don't know. Probably. Anyway.
Yeah.
So they go through the ladder match. We get down to the last person. Conveniently, the Joker comes out last. But it's not the Joker by himself. There's a whole mob of masked wrestlers who come out. One guy who you can kind of tell with their movement who some of these people are. Like you could tell one guy was Ethan Page, who's pretty sure. The one huge guy, W. Morrissey, which I'm sorry, that's one of the worst freaking names in the history of wrestling. You probably know him better as Big Cass from the Enzo and Cass promo. You can kind of spot him. So the guy who climbed the ladder, you could tell with his sleeves come up, it was a black guy. And knowing one of them was Ethan Page, Rosie was like, that's got to be Scorpio Sky.
Yes, yeah,
I'm like, probably so. He pulls the mask off. It's not Scorpio Sky. It's Stokely Hathaway. The manager has now won this thing. The rest of the masks come off. We've got Ethan Page, to no surprise, Lee Moriarty, the Ass Boys, and Big Cass. And then Sympathy for the Devil by Rolling Stones play. And here comes this guy who looks like the Masked Magician from that show on Fox several years ago.
Great show.
And he hands the chip, Stokely hands the chip to this guy. Now, the guy, you could tell by the guy's movements that this was more than likely MJF.
Yeah.
To the point that I told Rosie, I'm like, it has to be somebody else because it was too damn obvious it was MJF. Like, he had the same exact mannerisms as MJF. So surely this is a swerve, but we'll get to that later. So anyway, that's the opening match. Let's see here.
Oh,
It
yeah.
says, love the booking of the finish, strength in numbers. Yes, I like it, but depending on where it goes from here as far as how those guys tie in with the guy who ends up winning it at the end of the night. But we'll get to that.
Oh, hang on. I saw
shortly.
a big one. Hang on. There was a big comment that I enjoyed.
Ruby Bird Nose. Somehow
that was
haggard-looking Lita with a butch cut. Jeez.
There we go. Horrible look.
Horrible theme song, not to mention ugly.
That's a very kind thing to say. I appreciate
right.
it. That's pretty. Hey, Justin, argue in our chats. Justin Klein. That's a very smart move. We appreciate everybody else. Thank you for commenting.
Justin Klein's going to get heat no matter where he goes, whether it's the chats or Burger King. He's
in which he's apparently at Austin.
All right, so the second match of the night is the tournament final for the inaugural AEW World Trios Championship. 19 minutes and 50 seconds it took the Elite, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks with Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa to defeat Hangman Adam Page and the Dark Order, which was Alex Reynolds and John Silver, to become the very first Trios champions. They had Don Callis on commentary. I mean, it was a good match. It was a Young Bucks match. It was a Kenny Omega match. It was what you come to expect from them.
I was going to ask, is it what you were kind of like when you saw that, you're hoping that, hey, let's give them 20 minutes to do their stuff, or would you?
I mean, they could have hit the high spots and told the story in 12 at the very least. But that's going to be a theme throughout the night. Keeping it rolling. This is a match that I know Xander's would have been down for because I know what a fan he is. Jade Cargill, the TBS champion, with Kiera Hogan and Layla Gray, I guess they call them the baddies, in her corner, defeated Athena, the former Ember Moon in WWE, by pinfall to retain her TBS championship in a match that was thankfully 4 minutes and 20 seconds long.
It seems to be, I mean, we're going to spend more time than probably anyone else will on it, but like, why do they? I'm kind of confused on, because if I was booking a girl of that size, because she looks like a beast, like she looks like she could, if she could figure it out, she looks like she could figure it out. But like they seem like they pigeonhole her so hard with putting her with Hogan and those girls instead of just letting her be a dominant heel and then just not worry about it. They pigeonhole her with some semantics that may not be necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're booking her up to be this big. Big badass, but then she needs help.
Yeah.
Ironically, her theme for her gear that night was She-Hulk, so she was completely green, which, the ironic part of her being green and then wearing green, I thought you would have found humorous.
As grass.
But, her booking has been very strange. I understand why they want to push her, and she has potential and she has a good look, but she's green. She's as her.
The way they did Awesome Con in TNA, like she did so well at being booked. Like I know Dutch Mantel had a lot to do with that, but like that's how you book a like top heel.
And when you hear all these 20-minute, 14-minute matches, 420 sounds short, but it was not short enough for that match.
Yeah.
Her matches need to be a minute and a half. They need to be female Goldberg.
Yeah, that might be a little heavy too, but
yeah,
because Wardlow can at least find guys. I mean, there's plenty of girls that can help put her over there. There's because I know Kara Hogan's talented. And there's a lot of girls.
There's plenty of girls she could have good matches. She's just getting overexposed by having these longer matches. Put her on Dark. Have these longer matches on Dark. I mean, I know they don't have a house show circuit for her to go do this on, but just don't have her on pay-per-view and on the main shows going out there having these matches that is longer than what she needs to be having.
I wholeheartedly agree. But.
Another 6-man tag match, 16 minutes and 30 seconds for Wardlow and FTR to defeat Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns, along with Satnam Singh and Sanjay Dutt. That's actually one of the matches that helped sell the pay-per-view for me. I was pretty excited about that one. I'm a fan of all those guys. Not necessarily Wardlow. I don't have anything against him. I just
right, yeah.
But
he's a good piece. He's a very good piece.
Yeah, for the amount of time he's been in the business, he's come along well.
Mm-hmm.
They're booking him like Goldberg, but he works a lot better than Goldberg ever did. I don't like this powerbomb symphony. You don't need to powerbomb anybody 6 or 7 times. I mean, it's
Batista
absurd.
didn't have to. He reminds me so much of what Batista was.
I think that's really more what they're going for, even though the entrance reeks more of Goldberg.
But Goldberg sells better than Batista because Batista can look like a chump sometimes, and he's still popular. Goldberg's old and not popular.
That was a good match. It was again another match that probably needed to be shorter just because the whole show was as long as it was. But, those guys could have carried a longer match if they needed to. There was just no call for it. But it was a good match. And I just like to see Jay Lethal get off the losing end of things for a while. But there was a little, heat spot there with Sanjay Dutt putting on a T-shirt, making fun. There's something going on. I don't know the whole story, but apparently Dax Harwood's little girl is like 8-year-old girls has some kind of sickness or whatever, and so they've been selling these shirts, fight like an 8-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so Dutt came out with a T-shirt and said fight like, and it had girl crossed out and it said brat. And so FTR brought the little girl out to the ring with him, and so they did a spot where afterwards after he power bombed Dutt, then she come in and put her foot on him and pinned him or something such.
So that was the fun ending where they probably I'm sure if you could have knocked the Bucks match down by 5 minutes, that would have probably been the crowd would have probably I don't know. I'm sure the crowd enjoyed it. I don't know.
They're not wore out quite yet.
Yeah.
Powerhouse Hobbs. This apparently was a grudge match. Hobbs had turned on Ricky Starks.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
Ricky Starks to me looks like a anorexic Rock.
I don't even give him that.
The Rock is a cancer patient or something, but anyway.
I wouldn't even give him that.
Hobbs turns on Ricky Starks, but they end up having a single match. They go 5-0-5, and Hobbs pins him, beats him pretty clean. A lot of people were saying that match was too short. I thought that's one of the few matches that really fit the time frame that it needed to be. I just don't really know what I've always gotten the impression they're going to do something big with Ricky Starks, but he don't seem to be off to a big start with his singles run now here, getting turned on by Hobbs, and Hobbs beating him pretty handily in this match.
Well, they seem to have a thing to where old wrestlers turn into they do it so fast, put him in a manager role. I just see him end up being a manager within the next year. It'll just happen there because
it's possible. I could see that happen. They've weeded Taz out of the manager role, so I guess technically that opens up a spot. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe
this next match, while it was a good match, it's another match that went way too long in my personal opinion. 22 minutes and 30 seconds. For Swerve and Our Glory, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland to defeat the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster with Daddy Ass, Billy Gunn. I am completely perplexed at how over the Acclaimed was in Chicago. People were losing their mind. The scissoring thing, Apparently, Scissor Me Daddy Ass is the most best-selling shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees right now. People are holding up signs. People are, losing their mind. If they're going to put the belts on the Acclaim, this would have been a night to do it because the crowd would have ate it up. And there was one count by the referee. Swerve didn't, or I think it was Keith Lee that didn't quite make it there to break a pin quite on time, and it was questionable of whether that was a 3 count. And the crowd popped, and then they realized, oh, we're going to call it 2, and they started chanting bullshit, and they really didn't get the referee back. Get the fans back after that referee screw up. But, I think they need to keep the belts on Keith Lee and Swerve for a little while just because they've been bouncing them around too much. And the Acclaim, they're still young. They're just getting started. They're throwing belts on people too quickly, in my opinion, for any of it to mean anything.
Well, they're losing a lot of that comeuppance because they did so well with the girl with the long hair in WWE, Bianca Belair. Like, they did so well with her. The way they advertised her, they put her on SportsCenter and advertised it so hard, and it did good numbers just because they advertised it well. They allowed her to lose.
Yeah,
good for them, man. So
the crowd completely turned on Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, who've been baby faces up to then. So
good. Maybe that'll be something to where, because they definitely need some good. I think Keith Lee would probably thrive better in that role as a solid dominant.
And Strickland definitely.
Yeah, with a cocky talking. Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the match, Keith Lee goes over and scissors Daddy Ass, and Strickland just looks disgusted and jumps out of the ring. And so Strickland is much more of a natural heel, and Keith Lee, and especially with the size of most of the wrestlers in their tag team division, Keith Lee is going to be bulldozing over them anyway. It just fits better to be a heel in that role. Yeah. Wouldn't you think? Next match was our 4-way for the interim AEW Women's World Championship. Of course, Thunder Rosa is injured. Going to be out for a while, which is injuries are plaguing AEW and wrestling in general. Yeah. So in the 4-way match, Toni Storm defeated Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Jamie Hayter, and Hikaru Shida to win the match. I think the fans were probably more behind Jamie Hayter than they were Toni Storm, but I don't know. I haven't followed it a lot lately. I haven't really followed the women's division that well. I don't know. I expected Dr. Britt Baker to win it.
I was going to ask why. Why are they not pulling the trigger on that one? Because that would only be the only heel that would really make sense. That would do that.
I don't know. I guess they're just trying to keep it off of her for a little while since she had it for so long. But I just figured with things like they were that they would put it on her. But Toni Storm's the interim women's champion, so. There you go. So now the next match, you're going to like the time on this one. This one went 20 seconds. Christian Cage defeated Jungle Boy Jack Perry by pinfall in 20 seconds. Now, what happened here? Christian comes out, then Jungle Boy comes out. Well, first, Christian comes out, smack talks Jungle Boy's mother and sister, and Jungle Boy's mother ends up slapping him. And so then Jungle Boy comes out. He looks towards the ramp because he's expecting Luchasaurus to come out. But Luchasaurus comes out the other side, on the heel side, grabs him and choke slams him on this big metal grate, which left some legit line. Like, his back looked rough, dude. Those pictures are online. It looks terrible.
I saw those.
But he choke slammed him off on there, then picked him up, carried him to the ring, tossed him in the ring. Christian speared him, 1-2, kick out, and you're like, okay, well, maybe this is going to be a match. Then he hits him with the used to be the Unprettier. I don't know what he calls it now. Maybe he still calls it that.
Kill switch. I don't know.
Kill switch.
Pins him and wins. Come to find out afterwards, the word is Christian is injured with an injury similar to what Punk has, and it's probably going to be out 8 to 9 months. So, yeah.
I don't understand, I don't know if it's an indictment on the rest of the roster, but why is he having to really work heel? Because at this point he should almost be a Legends baby face. But man, do you really think it's those guys that are just like, well, I want to work, or is it because they feel like if they don't
I think if you ask me, I think Christian must have come in and handpicked Jungle Boy as, hey, I want to work with this guy and help teach him and elevate him, because I mean, he worked in his corner all that time, and then he turns on him. Like, I think this whole heel turn has just been strictly for Christian to help elevate Jungle Boy.
I hope so, because I mean, like, Christian's always been one of those dudes that has been able to be so versatile and useful. I'd hate for him to be away from helping those guys, and which we'll talk about later if they even won't help. But I guess we should probably go to the.
Let's move on through these last couple of matches, and then we'll get there. So the following match, Chris Jericho. This is Lionheart Chris Jericho. Apparently, he's wearing his old Lionheart style gear from 1996 and coming out to the White Zombie song he came out to in ECW in Japan. And he defeated Bryan Danielson by pinfall in 23 minutes and 40 seconds in another match that desperately needed to be shorter.
So I see Scott, and if anybody's on the audio end of this, Scott, you have a very disdained look in your eyes as you shake your head. What is your opinion about that? Because Daniel Bryan, I mean, is Daniel Bryan top 5 wrestlers right now, pro wrestlers, if you want to talk pro wrestling?
Not right now. I wouldn't.
You don't think Daniel Bryan's top 5 pro wrestlers?
Not the way. Well, are we talking about just the way he's being booked?
Currently, as a wrestler, just as a wrestler in the business.
Yeah,
in the business right now. Okay, so with that loss, I mean, was that warranted or necessary or intelligent when it comes to your end of booking?
I don't feel like it's intelligent, but then again, I'm looking at what they're doing, and they don't put Chris Jericho under to anybody. The only person he's lost to is Moxley. Is the only person he's lost to since he's been there, basically. It's just dumb. I think it's dumb booking. I don't know, but I mean that's just my point of view. And I love Chris Jericho. I think Chris Jericho is a great athlete and a performer and all that kind of stuff. Best sports entertainer or however he wants to go about it.
I mean, we used to watch him in Japan all the time. Like whenever we were hard studying footage, his White Tiger Mask matches were really good. Very good stuff. Like him, we used to watch him in Benoit all the time. But I'm in the same boat as you are. It's so rough watching him now and to just see the outcomes. It's so bad.
All I know is this, and my point of view on it is, if they're waiting to give him another loss or trying to build him, keep him up so much for the next loss, it better be to Daniel Garcia. It's got to be the way they're booking.
I assume that's where they're headed. But my thing is, I mean, I'm not one of these people that hates Jericho. I've always been a fan of Jericho. Kudos for the shape that he's gotten himself in the last few months. You know, he got to looking very, very bad, and then now he's gotten in great shape. But the thing that really stands out in a match like that one is he hasn't accepted the fact that he's the age that he is. And that 20-something minute match with Bryan Danielson wrestling Bryan Danielson style of wrestling exposed the shit out of him. Because the first half looked pretty good. But midway through, like, you can tell Danielson's just letting himself out of some of these holds because Jericho's just not holding on. He doesn't have any follow through. Like, it just looked bad. Like, that match either needed to be it needed to be half as long.
Definitely.
But, I mean, since you've played up this whole angle of Jericho's a sports entertainer, blah, 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 you should have done a sports entertainment style match, whatever gimmick you want that to be, let him go over. And then in the pure wrestling match, like what this was, then Danielson goes over. Now you split it and do what you want to do in the third match. But for him to go over in a match that suits Daniel Bryan's style,
shouldn't be the end of the rivalry there. It shouldn't.
And I'm sure it's not, because this tournament, we'll get to that in a minute, but it's designed for them two to meet again. I'm quite sure. The next match, a 6-man tag team match, Darby Allin, Sting, and Miro, the oddest 6-man team I may have ever seen, defeated the House of Black, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews with Julia Hart in 12 minutes and 10 seconds.
That feels like. And how many more matches after this?
There's only one more after this.
Okay, so can we talk about this? We'll go to commercial and then talk about the main. Is that
that's what I was going to say.
Okay, perfect.
We can talk about the main event and everything that goes with it following the break.
So
there's not a lot to say about this match. Scott, if you got some comments, this was a bathroom break match for me at this point, and I really didn't see much of it.
No, like I don't even have a point of view really on the match. I just have a point of view on the people that's in the match, and I'm not a a Sting fan, Black Sting fan, whatever you want to say. I'm just not a fan. Like, dude, we went and watched him at a TNA show, and this was what? This is 8 years
But this
ago?
he was also the Joker Sting, which was a really bad wrestling Sting.
Yeah, that was
well, anyway, it was about 8 years ago. We watched him live, and he couldn't even put his own move on because he was
he couldn't do the Scorpion Deathlock, and it was rough.
So you add him to this match where you already have a guy who I don't have any kind of like respect for or anything of Darby Allin, who's just like this twig of a Jeff Hardy wannabe kind of kid, and that's just my point of view. Everybody,
we all know it. The views expressed by Scott are not all.
I mean, that's what a podcast is. Everybody gets
you're good, man.
You don't have to.
This just seems like
I can't take it serious.
Malachi. Well, I understand that this seems like a Malachi Black punishment. Goodbye, have fun in WWE. By the end of it. Because, I mean, this is what's going to be his for the next 5 years, because Tony Khan said 5-year contract from a little bit I've read. But we'll talk a lot, because that's a lot of inside of the locker room stuff, which I know we want to do on the backside of the commercial.
And that's what I was getting to too. It had to be some kind of a punishment toward them, those guys, because I mean, I don't know. There's nothing about that kid that would like terrorize me in any kind of way. Or the fact that he should be going over any kind of way.
Well, I'm not shocked. Nobody
terrorizes to finish him Sting spitting that black shit that Malachi Black's been spitting in his face was just like, really? Okay, all right.
Enjoy
that's the comeuppance, man. That's the big comeuppance.
Malachi.
Thanks
for playing.
All right, so we'll talk about the main event on the backside of the commercial break.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll be right back, guys.
Are you looking to have a good time? Well, head on down to Happy Hour Comedy Club and Restaurant in Anniston, Alabama. Shoot you some pool, play you some darts, or head on over to the bar and get you a cold beer or one of them fancy cocktail drinks. They got all that. You hungry? Get you one of the best pizzas in Anniston or anything else off the menu. They got burgers, tacos, chicken wings, anything you want. Every Thursday night, they got open mic comedy and karaoke, and live comedy every Friday and Saturday night with some of the top comedians from across the United States. Go to happyhourcomedyclub.com for more information and tell them Whitey Jenkins sent you.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
You like barbecue? Well, of course you do, unless you're some kind of weirdo or wasn't raised right. So if you want to get some of the best barbecue around, check out P3 Barbecue. Our buddy David Estes does it up right, and he'll be glad to cater to your next event or just send you some of his award-winning sauce right there to your own doorstep. Go over and check them out on the Facebooks at facebook.com/P3 Barbecue, or give old David a call at 901-679-3452 and tell him Whitey Jenkins sent you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school, but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Dangerous Dan Colley, the Professor Jimmy Street, and the Plastic Sheik Jared are the undisputed 6-man tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise, this trio does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Get ready to get inspired. It's Xander's Inspirational Podcast, the brand new podcast with Upbeat Xanders, as he has one-on-one podcast sessions that both inspire and inform. Check it out as Xanders has a one-on-one interview with some of your favorite people in and out of the professional wrestling business. Give it a listen on CheapHeatTVLive.com. It's the Old School Dives Pro Wrestling Podcast with Shane Knowles and Gene Jackson. Every episode, they will take a deep dive into old school professional wrestling. Pro wrestlers, events, all sorts of great topics will be covered every 2 weeks right here on Old School Dives. You can find it at CheapHeatTVLive.com and at YouTube.com/CheapHeatTV. Cheap Heat TV. It's Old School Dives with Shane Knowles and Gene Jackson. All right.
Oh, hey, we're back. Oh, hang on, Gene. I was going to try to put the video out there. Of course, I'm poor at my timing. I guess we could do it later. We might open the show with it next week. We'll see.
All right. So here's a couple of quick pictures we forgot to put up during the show. There's Toni Storm with her new title. There's the Elite celebrating with their new titles that turns out they wouldn't hold very long. The Jericho Appreciation Society appreciating Jericho.
That chest. That chest.
There's Max Caster lifting up Keith Lee in a familiar, it was something that looks familiar, and it turns out John Cena would later tweet that picture out without any comment. Just tweeted that picture, and a lot of people had compared Max Caster to John Cena in that moment, so that was kind of fun. But now we come to the main event, the one that everybody in Chicago was there to see. Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Title against CM Punk, and it went 19 minutes and 55 seconds. CM Punk would end up defeating Jon Moxley with the go to sleep and would regain the title for the second time. And as CM Punk is standing in the ring celebrating the win, suddenly the arena goes black. You hear a voicemail play over the arena. PA of Tony Khan leaving a message, obviously, for MJF, begging him to come back at All Out, and he would give him a spot in the casino ladder match if he would come back. And then we see a little clip of a CM Punk promo from Ring of Honor where he says the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing you he didn't exist. Then we see the masked man step on screen. He turns his back to the camera. He pulls the mask off, and you can already kind of tell by the hairdo who it is. And he says, "And I am the devil himself." And he throws that scarf around his neck, and now you know who the Joker is. And a couple moments later, his music hits, and the people lose their shit. And MJF comes back out on the ramp. There's a lot of boos at first. There's kind of a mixed reaction. And then finally, at one point, as CM Punk is standing in the center of the ring in Chicago, his hometown, holding the AEW World Title he just won, the entire arena is chanting MJF, MJF. And I'm sitting there thinking, have they screwed up?
I was going to ask.
Have they turned my man babyface here? Because this could be a problem.
Is that a bad call? I mean, do you consider why do you have to continue that going? Because that was all on air. Like that was for God and everybody to see on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, it was on the air. Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
What part? I mean, which is crazy.
But just to have him come out there during that moment, because I mean that's like Punk's moment. Even if he's injured and we kind of know it, that's supposed to be Punk's moment. Like tell that story tomorrow, where you can get like. I
mean, I'm okay. I mean, because you don't want to go off the air without revealing who won the ladder match earlier. I mean, because then everybody's going to say, oh, it's a bait and switch trying to get you to watch Dynamite. You paid $50 to see this fucking pay-per-view, and now I got to watch Dynamite to find out who the damn Joker is. I'm fine with that. I just think the whole structure of that angle of how he left and how he's been gone and all that has somewhat turned him babyface in the fans' eyes to some degree because it's that whole anti-authority Steve.
It did Punk. I mean, it did Punk. That was not there. I don't think that was going into that title negotiation with Punk. Whenever it was Punk and Cena, that they were originally planning on Punk to be a baby.
No. I mean, no, absolutely not.
I mean, that's what happens when you air your dirty laundry. Yeah. Generally, people side with the people who don't.
And especially now when all these fans crave all the inside information. So we're 6:45, so we gotta push this forward. So it goes off the air. You go off the air with MJF on the screen motioning like the belt's going around my waist, and the show ends. So for my part of it, I come in here and pull up the laptop, and I'm fixing to watch Cheap Heat TV and see how y'all did on the show. And then a buddy of mine, one of our friends who's done the show before, one of the guys from P3 Radio, Richard, sent me a message. And he's like, "Are you watching this post-show media scrum? Because if you're not, you need to. Because oh my God, Punk's going in on everybody. I was like, what? And so when I turned it on, I missed the first couple of minutes, but he's right heated in. He's in the middle of the Colt Cabana stuff, or Scott Colton. He never would call him Colt Cabana. And so I watched the nearly 30 minutes of Punk's tirade. Mm-hmm. And so it's fun. If you haven't watched this, go back and watch it, and just look at Tony Khan's face. Look at that. I mean, this is a guy who is not having a good time.
No.
Okay.
He's not fantasy. He's not the fantasy booker that he was 4 years ago with his
random
friends.
Pictures taken at different times, and he is absolutely miserable in each and every one of those pictures. I promise you. And there's the shot that we went out on right there. I forgot I had it in the show. And so then I went back later and skimmed through, and I skipped past Swerve and Keith Lee because I didn't give a shit what they were talking about. And Tony Storm, I didn't care what some British chick was talking about. I listened to Jericho's part, and I thought he was pretty diplomatic considering everything Punk had already said. And then Tony Khan said some stuff during that. It was just like, if Mako was there, he'd been like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I mean,
Tony, dude, he talks.
That whole crap about WWE running on Labor Day weekend, and I'm not going to take this shit and all that. I'm like, what, dude? Like,
he's so obsessed with.
You created a promotion to be competition to them, and just because they're pushing back, now you're taking it personal. Like, what?
It's his biggest knock. It's his biggest knock. He's feeling that, like, he's feeling so much pressure behind him to just kind of, he's feeling rushed at this point because Cody Rhodes probably didn't make him feel that rush, to be honest.
So I'm going to say a couple things, and then I'm going to turn it over to y'all to say what you think about it, and then we'll see what the comments are. But full disclosure, I'm a huge CM Punk fan since the summer of Punk and Ring of Honor. I've followed his career from when he was in IWA Mid-South working for Ian Rotten, straight through Ring of Honor, OVW, up to WWE. Loved all the shit that went on with the angle with him and Cena, the stuff with him and Triple H, the promos with Kevin Nash, Kevin Nash was one of my heroes, and Punk handed him his ass every week for months. It was tremendous. And then, super excited when he came back. And I honestly, all jokes aside, listening to him at the original media scrum, as they've now popularized the term, and he was like, "Hey, I'm so happy to come back and work with all the young talent and all that." I literally said to myself that night, like, well, we'll see about that, because these kids these days are fucking pricks and they know everything. And fast forward a year later, you take a picture of him at the original one sitting next to Tony Khan. You take a picture of the guy who was sitting there eating cupcakes, ranting angrily about working with children, about Adam Page being an empty-headed dumb fuck, and taking shots at the Bucks almost by name. He's a guy who, just like Tony Khan, is not having a good time. He's clearly not enjoying himself in AEW, and I don't blame him. I've heard all kinds of hot takes on this throughout the week, and there's people who say, "Oh, CM Punk's a whiner and he's never happy and blah blah blah." And then there's people who say, "Oh, he shouldn't have said all that. That's unprofessional. He should have talked about it backstage." Blah blah blah. Okay, here's my thing. All the things that he talked about in front of, now keep in mind, this is not national media. This is the wrestling media. This is dirt sheet writers, website writers, podcasters. I mean, I'm sure if we were in Chicago, we probably could have got a pass to been back there and asked him a question and got cussed out. I sit there and seen him talking about things that these dirt sheet writers have been talking about. That's the stories that you've seen all over Facebook and Twitter for the last month, is speculating about the stuff with Adam Page, the stuff with Colt Cabana. That's been going on for months, them saying that he got Colt Cabana originally fired, and then that's why Cabana was going to have to work for ROH, was because of Punk. And then, that's all been talked about in the public. So why would he not talk about it to them? Okay, maybe it is rude that he's doing it in front of his boss, but you know what? there's 3 guys on this screen right now that I could see doing the very same thing. If there were post-show media scrums on little indie shows that we do, you think Gene Jackson wouldn't sit up there and bless out Chris Kronk or some dipshit in front of the promoter, whomever that be, whether it was Neil Taylor or Ace Haven or Shane Knowles or whoever the fuck? Damn right he would. I know Scott Morgan would.
You've done it. You've done it.
And I know Charles Anders would. So, I mean,
Never.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. People who want to, yeah, I mean, would it have been better if he didn't say all that? Yeah, probably. Or said it with a little different tone or whatever, but I totally get it. I totally get it. And if you look at what Adam Page went out there and did on TV right before, on the go-home show, before a major pay-per-view, going into business for himself, I mean, if you're not in wrestling, you don't understand what a big deal that is. For the people who do, the wrestlers that I've seen posting this week ripping on CM Punk, if you can go watch that promo from Adam Page and look at Punk's face and know that he didn't know any of that was coming or even how to really respond to that, why he would be doing it, then you understand why Punk was so mad and why he said all the shit that he said in that press conference.
It ruins everything for wrestlers if that happens. That's all I'm going to say until we get to mine.
Well, I mean, I'm done, so you guys can chime in and say.
You
got it, Scott. You got it.
All right. So my point of view on a lot of that is, and I told the guys before the show that I actually took what happened and actually went and did a lot of rabbit hole research on what was actually going on because of I was out of it a lot.
Scott shitty kid in the background, by the way.
I'd ignore it. But anyways, I didn't understand a lot what was going on because I was out of it kind of. So basically, the first thing is Punk did not go into the interview and was like, "All right, I'm going to air all the grievances." He came to that spot and he got tossed these questions and everything. So all he did was reactive, and he was upset because it was just constant. So of course he was upset, and he said what he wanted to say because he was like, "Here it is. We'll put it out there and be done with it." And I think that's big of him to do because otherwise he could have just hid behind it and just moved on to the next question.
Can I say one thing before you say your part, Charles?
Yeah.
Okay, so based on some, I went back and watched that beginning of that thing from a couple of different sources because the audio is different depending on which one you watch. And I also read where Meltzer said that it seemed practiced, which I thought was absurd. But I do agree with Meltzer. I do think, and this contradicts what Scott just said, but this is just based on my research on this. I do think CM Punk walked into that press conference knowing he was fixing to say what he's about to say because he was not asked about Colt Cabana. It had been all in the media up until then, and then he's seen a guy named Nick Hausman who used to do comedy or do what do you call it? Not just stand up, but like
acting. Is he acting?
Yeah, well, where you go up on stage and you do the
improv. Is it like
improv? He used to do improving with no, Klein. I'm not stealing your point. I'm making your point because I read your question, smart ass. I'm helping make it for you since you're not here to make it. So he saw that guy there. He knew they used to do improv together. So he thought he was fixing to dunk on him and be like, "Hey, you used to do improv with Scott Colton, right?" And the guy's like, "Yes." He's like, "Are you friends with Scott Colton?" He's like, "No, I don't have anything to do with him anymore. We had a falling out." And then Punk's like, "Okay, well, that makes 2 of us." But anyway, my point is, and then so he went into it. No, he wasn't asked about it. But, I mean, that dead horse had been being beaten for weeks and weeks and weeks. And this was his moment to address it in front of the people who have been beating the dead horse. I understand why he did it. And I 100% think he came in there intending to say all that stuff. But I don't mean it was like people took that when Meltzer said, "Oh, I think it was planned," like Tony Khan was in on it. I'm sorry, Tony Khan is not that good.
No.
You look at Tony Khan. I'm telling you, watch that and just look at Tony Khan. Don't look at anything else in that room, and you will know he did not know that was coming. I promise you that. Yeah. But Punk knew he was going to go in there and say all that because at this point, CM Punk does not need this shit, y'all. He doesn't need money. He doesn't need to wrestle. And like Tammy Hudson says here, Punk has changed. He's not the same guy I used to watch. Honey, I'm sorry. He is the same. He is the same guy. CM Punk has been this guy all along. That's why he walked away from WWE the first time. He's a guy who he's willing to just up and walk away. He's willing to say what he has to say. And if you like it, oh well. I mean, that's who he is, and I respect that about him.
Well,
I do.
So I've talked to a couple of people about it because I get asked whenever I speak to people in my free time. Like the first person to say like anything is he's like, this made me think of this guy, because we did a whole special on him. What would have Jimmy Rave done in that locker room? Like, because whenever the Kenny Omega thing happened, because this goes way back, because could you be a fly on the wall and have the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega tell CM Punk or guys who had actually who had done it before all of this social media that really gave them this outlet that show themselves in the tape trading days, and even Daniel Bryan was good before that. Tell them that they need to step their game up. I get it, they were talking to young guys, but it's not a lot of young guys. I mean, there's 47 matches, but a lot of those guys are being told and agented and heavy like that. That was directed at some of those older guys. Jimmy Rave would have got up and thrown heads with somebody without a doubt. So my second thing is Tony Khan wants to compete with WWE. I don't doubt that. CM Punk probably wants to compete with WWE because I'm sure him and Triple H have a side talk where it's, hey, you're not going to be able to make this work. It's too combustible. You can't make that locker room work. Do you think the Bucks and Kenny Omega actually care about competing with WWE at all? Do you think they worry about their pockets enough to just be successful? Do they look at it as EVPs?
I don't.
I mean, obviously that's speculation. That's obvious speculation.
I think their intention was always. I think they knew they could not go and do what the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega do in WWE.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. So their intention was always to create their own playground where they can do whatever they want to do and make probably equal or more money than they could have made WWE anyway.
And try to hold the power as a
and then hold the
agreed.
And they thought they had created the perfect scenario where they could say and do anything they wanted and nobody would dare say anything back. But they found
they hadn't dealt with Punk. Yeah, they hadn't dealt with Punk. Yeah.
Screw y'all. I'll go back home.
He's made
and this is the thing,
money.
y'all. I'm sorry not to cut you off, Charles, but this is the thing that everybody's go to. He could always go back to UFC. That's everybody's ace in the hole. Is making fun of Punk going to UFC. Do you people understand? CM Punk left the highest level of sports entertainment that you could reach and then went and just walked into the highest level of mixed martial arts fighting that you can compete at. With strictly based off his reputation and his promos. He did a year's worth of training. He didn't even have any professional fights before walking into UFC fighting a guy who had trained in mixed martial arts his entire life. And he lost. And that's everybody clings to, he got his ass whipped in UFC. Oh my God. I mean, you pick your favorite wrestler.
Yeah. I mean, they would have never
whoever you think the biggest badass is in wrestling, send MJF to UFC and let's see how he does.
Not in today's
let's send fucking K-Swiss to WWE and see how he does.
Anyway, so let me just ask. So obviously it's a shit flows downhill. Like the Young Bucks are being kind of crazy and it's kind of flowing down to Adam Page. As a locker room, if you're that locker room leader guy, and I like this scenario, how do you handle it? How do you handle that? Do you pull them aside, or because clearly if they're running the locker room meetings, Adam Page cannot be a part of it. But do you not just go to everybody else and be like, look, we're gonna have to keep our heads down. We're gonna have to work this the way this is clearly not working the way they're working, or is it working? Because WWE's smoking them.
Allegedly, there was a meeting among the workers before the show Wednesday led by Moxley and Jericho and maybe someone else, but they were the two leaders of it. Based on what you saw Wednesday night, I'd say their meeting was pretty effective. Nobody made any reference to any of this shit. Nobody slid. Even MJF didn't touch it, which if anybody was going to, he'd have been the one to do it. I'm not a fan of Moxley. I don't get Moxley. I don't get people's love of I don't think he's horrible, but I don't know how he's reached the level of stardom he has. But kudos to him for that promo Wednesday night. I mean, it was right on time. It was exactly what it needed to be, and where and when it needed to be. And so
He can work, by the way. I mean, he's an excellent worker.
Okay.
I mean, I think he's a good, like, for what he is. He reminds me, because Mick Foley was a good worker. I believe Mick Foley.
If he would do what I'm telling you, man, like, he wants to be a deathmatch style, like. If he would work the style he worked as Ambrose, he would be good.
I know.
But, like, anytime I watch anything outside of AEW, it's fucking garbage, man. It looks terrible. Like, his strikes and all that stuff does not look real. Like, there was some spots in the last 2 or 3 matches. Like, there were spots in that match in Chicago that just looked awful. But, again, I mean, he's got – whatever you think of his work or anything else, he has the star power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that guy was, from all accounts, he was supposed to be going on vacation immediately after All Out and be gone. He changed his plans and came to, wherever, the Buffalo or wherever they were Wednesday night, and did the promo and, took the bull by the horns and stepped up for this tournament and all that. So kudos to the guy for that.
Yeah.
Because that's that's second or third time that he has stepped up when somebody else wasn't able to. I mean, look when Punk got injured. I mean, like I said, I'm a Punk fan, but the record books were always going to show, because I don't think Punk's going to be back. I think we're done. The record books are always going to show that CM Punk is a 2-time AEW champion with a combined reign of 6 days or whatever it is, which sucks, but it is what it is.
That was my first note. Is now that we're a little past in the overtime, Scott's even eating pizza. So
yeah, Scott's like, once 7 hits, it's game on.
Pizza
I'm
time.
turning the TV on.
Thanks once again, y'all two. Thanks for showing up. I do want to say a thank you for showing up tonight.
Well, I mean, somebody had to.
Somebody had to. Mako's still asleep or something, being Mako McMahon.
I do want to say, though, I do agree with Justin Klein that at times Moxley has come off like a discount version of Steve Austin. I mean, blatantly come off like a ripoff of Steve Austin. And I don't think it's a good look. I don't think MJF out there making all these WWE references in promos is a good look. I hate that. MJF, I think, is one of the best promo people in the business today. He's one of the few real heels there are in the business. Xanders don't like that, but it's a fucking fact. Watch heel,
I agree.
Watch more of it, you'll understand.
He's a very good heel.
You're basing most of your opinions on clips you've seen. So watch some more of it and you'll get that. But he's very talented. But this whole quoting Triple H and Cody and making all these WWE references, it doesn't do anything but make AEW be perceived more as second class than they already are. I mean, I get there's like, oh, it's putting heat on MJF because he's putting over WWE. Okay, but to an AEW fan, that's still having somebody that they look up to, that they respect on the show, calling this show second rate. He goes, if I win the tournament or I win the title, I'll take it to a real promotion. Talking about WWE, you're not helping yourself. I'm sorry, you're just not. I don't care how much you love MJF. I'm a fan of his. I have been from day one. It's stupid. It's not helping things at all.
I mean,
they need to drop that aspect of his character quickly.
They did that so well with Punk back in the day, but that was because they had somebody like Cena, who, I mean, was untouchable at the time, a pretty damn good worker, and could hold his own weight in promo to where you come in and say, well,
but all Cena could say, all Punk could say is, I'm leaving. There was no other place to go. He wasn't saying, well, I'll go to WCW, because WCW didn't exist. He just said, I'll just go home. I mean, I think he referenced Ring of Honor and New Japan. I mean, Ring of Honor was way
I think he
levels
mentioned
and levels
TNA.
below. Yeah, I mean, but it didn't put them. It didn't put them on the level with WWE.
I don't know numbers. I really don't know numbers and like buys and stuff like that. It's. Do you consider WWE and AEW on the same, quite close to the same level? I mean, I think they're AAA major league. I don't consider them on.
No, not in reality.
Yeah.
I mean, they're number 2 by default, but I don't think if you look at real numbers.
But that's because Tony's bought up everybody else. To be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. That's my biggest thing is like, this. I love the idea of it. I love all of the AEW stuff, but it's a madhouse over there. It looks like WCW. That's the way it looks.
Oh, it turned into WCW 2000 in just a few months' time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And out of all this, Cody Rhodes looks like the smartest man on earth. And it also makes him look like I mean, if you look at a timeline, it may have just not been out in public till then, but if you look at the timeline, things did not go completely off the rails in the AEW locker room until Cody left and went to WWE. And that's when you start hearing all these stories of people mad at EVPs and da-da-da-da-da. It may be coincidental, I don't know, but it is funny. And it will always, the history books, however all this plays out, it will always be like, boy, Cody sure dodged a bullet on that one, didn't he? I mean, because, and, you know, I still to this day am shocked that with Vince McMahon still in charge, that Cody Rhodes returned to WWE at a WrestleMania with his indie/AEW music look and all that, and went over on a main WWE star on pay-per-view for the next 3 pay-per-views is unbelievable, because that would have never happened just a few years ago.
No. It showed that Vince McMahon was on his way out. It really did. I mean, that's the biggest thing. But
I don't know if it'll ever happen again.
No. But so we're good. We're good with the AEW.
I think we touched on all the main topics for the most part.
Perfect.
So to kind of put a bow on all that, the following day, or on Dynamite on Wednesday, Tony Khan starts the show with the world title is vacant, the trios title is vacant. Apparently, the Elite and Kenny Omega are suspended along with a bunch of people in the back.
Just
apparently,
the beginning of that saga.
Punk and Ace Steel are suspended. They may not ever come back. We don't know. We'll see how all that plays out. I can only imagine, though, real quickly, and then we'll go. But if you're the typical fan, because I'm sorry, not all fans scour the internet, follow dirt sheets, and read every little thing. Some fans paid $50 for a pay-per-view on Sunday night and went home like, woo! Punk's the champ. The Elite's got the 6-man titles. This is awesome. And then turned on Dynamite because of the actions after All Out, the world title and the trios titles have been vacated. And they're like, what? What happened? And there's no explanation.
Yeah, no, that's Tony Khan being like, guys, I'm so mad right now. We're about to pack it up, bleep the holes. I'm done with y'all's crap. We're not even explaining this story. Everybody go home, get your shit together. Get it all up and get that shit together, because you're taking it out and we're done with it. All right, so I'm going to do what I'm supposed to be doing, by the way, Gene, which is supposed to be advertising, promoting, and doing stuff like that. Smokey sent me an email that was awful. If you're still here right now, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate it. Please go like, share, and subscribe all of our stuff. Go follow us on, CheapHeatTV. Hit us with it, Gene. You got it. Scott, do you know what it is? There's all of our social media stuff. Scott just points up in the air.
CheapHeatTVlive.com is the website, but those are the actual...
Yes, that's all of our social media stuff. If you're watching us, thank you. If you're listening to us on Anchor, we greatly appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to our new YouTube stuff, please do. We lost a bunch of that stuff through YouTube being jerks. We're on Twitch now. We've got all kinds of avenues coming up. We've got some other big announcements, but of course we can't make them. Next week, I'm going to try to have some secret behind-the-scenes content for us at a certain event that's coming up this weekend that no one else knows about in the universe because Mako decides to sleep. Scott, do you want to talk about WWE right now? You ready?
No, man. Do you hear that rain, though? It's crazy.
Oh, no. I hit the wrong one. Smokey, help me. Smokey, I'm drowning. Help me, Smokey. I can't do the outro.
It's definitely raining, man.